Hi, everyone. My name is George Tracy. I'm director with U.S. Commercial Service here in Atlanta, Georgia. My organization is actually part of the International Trade Administration, which ultimately rolls up to the U.S. Department of Commerce, a federal organization that exists to help U.S. businesses expand. My specific organization's mission is to grow U.S. jobs. The way we do that is by helping companies, typically small and mid-sized companies, expand their exports or start exporting in the first place. We do that through a network of trade specialists around the world. In the United States, we have at least one office in every state, and in many states we have more than one, just depending on the size of the state, number of businesses that we're serving. And those trade specialists are actually trained experts in expansion internationally. Most have master's degrees, all are certified global business professionals, so that we really do have the expertise to help your company expand internationally, both from an operational perspective as well as a sales and marketing perspective. Probably as important as the network we have here in the United States is our global network. So we have foreign service officers who work specifically for U.S. commercial service in most of the embassies and consulates around the world. So those folks in the foreign country work in coordination with your company and your local trade specialist to help you find potential partners and customers in those foreign markets, as well as making sure that your company adheres to any local requirements, perhaps regulatory issues, coordinate travel, facilitate meetings. We offer all sorts of services for U.S. businesses that are looking to expand overseas. So the collective group between your local trade specialist and our international foreign commercial officers provide you a comprehensive solution, and we truly can help your company expand internationally, even if you've only exported a small amount or none at all to date. And our foreign commercial officers, they are not just government employees who are there to work for U.S. companies. They actually have a team of staff. We call them locally engaged staff, who are nationals of that particular country and have expertise in different industry sectors. So for example, if we decide that your company has a lot of potential in a place like Brazil, and you happen to be in the aerospace industry, we would engage the locally staff person who has expertise in the aerospace industry specifically. So those folks have very good connections. Typically, they've been working with our organization for many years. They know the players in each one of these industry sectors. So when it comes to introducing you to potential partners and customers in those countries, they already have the door somewhat open, and it's much more of a warm introduction as opposed to a cold introduction if you were to just try to go to one of these countries on your own. In Georgia, we're incredibly lucky because we have very strong partnerships with all of the different export-oriented resources that are available in this state. And we have many more than most states have, so good news. We call it the Export Assistance Center. It's just a collection and a collaboration of all export-oriented expertise. So for example, we work very closely with the Georgia Department of Economic Development. They have an outstanding team of international trade specialists that engage with our international trade specialists collectively to help your company. We also work very closely with the Small Business Development Center's International Trade Center, who also provide a lot of experience and expertise to companies to help them expand internationally. We work in coordination with organizations like the Export-Import Bank. And the actual representative for the South is in our office here in Atlanta. We work, of course, with USDA for agricultural products. We work with Bureau of Industry and Security, which helps make sure companies are compliant on the export side. And of course, the SBA. The SBA offers all sorts of very, very good export-specific loan programs that we can help companies understand and secure, assuming it's something that your particular company would benefit from. So collectively, we just have lots of resources available to help your company expand. And the amazing thing about this is that the vast majority of what we do is completely free. There are some small fees when you do ultimately decide to go overseas and start trying to secure those contracts and secure partnership arrangements and all that. But the fees aren't large, but all the counseling and stuff that these organizations collectively do for your company is completely free. So take advantage of it. It's out there. I keep saying free. It's not really, because you all pay taxes. So you're paying for this. Take advantage of it. We do have a particular type of client profile we look for. The first bullet point on this slide is really the most important. We're looking for a company that's export capable and committed to it. It doesn't matter if you're a new exporter or an experienced exporter. What we really don't want to do is get too much into the transactional side of things. So as we work with your company and you start to get export sales, of course, we help you with the transactions. But we're really looking for companies who want to make exporting a strategic part of their corporate goals. So as long as your company is really committed to exporting, we do have a U.S. content requirement because we're U.S. government. So your products or services have to be 51% U.S. content. That's based on total cost of goods sold. There's a formula involved. We can help you figure that out if there's any question around it. But as long as you're committed, you really want to make this part of your corporate goals over the long term. You're offering a U.S. product and service. And of course, you have some sort of budget. We typically, as a guideline, give companies $10,000 sort of as a minimum. The reason we do that is because at some point, of course, the goal is for you to make sales. It's not just to operationalize so you can export. You actually want to start exporting. Well, in order to do that, you're probably going to have to take a trip or two overseas, maybe more. So we like to make sure companies understand that there is a budget that they need to have in place and available so that they can properly pursue export markets. So if your company generally fits this profile, we would definitely like to hear from you. We don't just engage you and start giving you all sorts of advice. We actually function as true export counselors. We have a best practice engagement model that's been certified by Six Sigma and the Project Management Institute called the International Expansion Blueprint. The International Expansion Blueprint uses a balanced scorecard approach. You can see it on the right there, that colorful card, that looks at all of the different business dimensions that exporting can and probably will impact. And we look for gaps. So if we find a gap in a particular function that your business has that we think is going to make it either hard or impossible to export, for example, export compliance, good example, our team helps you close that gap. So the idea is that we want to fully enable your company to be completely export ready so that you have the highest probability to flourish when you start to actually sell overseas. So the International Expansion Blueprint, it's a full report, which includes that colorful card I was just mentioning. Probably most importantly, though, we don't just say, hey, you've got a gap. Good luck. Let us know when you figure that out. We actually create a work plan that's aligned with those gaps. And we identify the resources. Maybe it's somebody from the state of Georgia. Maybe it's one of those SBDC guys. Maybe we engage the SBA resource. We know all of these resources that can help your company close the gap. Sometimes it's your trade specialist that happens to know about, for example, website globalization, which I'm going to mention in a minute. But we bring in the full arsenal of export resources to you to make sure that A, we identify the gap, but then B, we help you close that gap. And then for obvious reasons, you got to close those gaps to really succeed internationally, and that's the ultimate goal, is making sales. So out of the International Expansion Blueprint come a lot of projects, essentially. So website globalization is one of them. I'm sure I don't have to convince any of you that the web is important in business nowadays. Well, it's equally important, perhaps more so, when you're trying to sell internationally. And there are certain things that companies can do that are very inexpensive or free that will dramatically improve your website's ability to attract and hopefully retain foreign visitors and hopefully identify some customers and partners for you. So we offer a service where we'll analyze your website and then give you advice around certain things that you can do to change your site to make it more appropriate for international business. We also do a lot of market research using many different dimensions that could be impactful to your company. We have access to a lot of online database resources In fact, the government pays a lot of money to give us access to these resources. So we tap into those resources to give you a pretty sophisticated analysis of which countries will probably be the best target for your products. Often companies will come to us and say, I want to go to country X. And it's mainly based on the fact that they know there's demand for their product in country X. This analysis that we do brings in a lot of other dimensions like risk, financial risk, political risk, many different things that could impact your company's ability to do business there. So even if a country has high demand for your product, it sometimes turns out that it's really not a good place for you to try to go just because there's too many other risks of getting paid and the various things that can cause problems. And so we help you figure out which countries really are the best targets for you, and then of course pull the trigger and help you get over there. Something else we offer is something we call an international sales kit. This is essentially just making sure the company has all the materials and presentations and whatnot that they will need to have the best chance of finding and securing contracts with partners and customers when they go to specific target markets. So an example of this would be if you're heading off to Argentina to find hopefully some partners and customers. Your trade specialists on this side, along with our people in Argentina, would help you pull together this international sales kit, which will have all the information that these Argentinian companies will want to know in order to feel good about entering into a partnership or a sales arrangement with your company. So we help you pull these things together. The bottom line is we really do comprehensively help your company from start to finish, operationalize for exporting all the way through the life cycle of securing sales, executing on those sales, and getting your product or service to market. I mentioned all these resources that we have access to. Being government, it's not unusual for companies to kind of somewhat be skeptical about whether we can really help them do all these things. We really can. We have lots of reference companies, many success stories out there. If your company's interested in exporting or expanding your exports, you absolutely need to get in touch with us and take advantage of all these resources. I briefly wanted to mention some specific services that we offer, particularly over in country through the foreign commercial officers that are working out of the embassies and the consulates. One of our most popular services is called a Gold Key service. So the way the Gold Key service works is, let's say you've been working with your trade specialists here in the United States and you've gotten everything in order, all the gaps are closed, and you really are ready to go overseas. We've done some market research, we've targeted a country, and we're ready to go. So the Gold Key service, what happens is the locally engaged staff in that target country will go out into their business environment and identify what they think, based on their knowledge and our knowledge, and your input, of course, of your company, who would be a good partner in that country. It's a very collaborative, iterative approach where the foreign post will come back with some list, and then your company and our team will look at the list and narrow it down and maybe eliminate some because this one doesn't look quite right, and this one. Eventually, you come up with a list of companies that seem like they're perfect for what you guys are looking for. It might be a distributor, it might be a sales agent, could be a sales rep. It all just depends on your company and what model works best for you in that particular country. Well, then our people will actually arrange the meetings for you. So you would get on a plane and go down there. Our folks would meet you at the airport. Like I said, coordinate the meetings, provide translation if necessary, provide transportation if necessary. Obviously, we can help with lodging and those kinds of things. And sometimes we arrange the meetings at the embassy. Other times we arrange meetings at the actual potential customer or partner's location. Just sort of depends on the logistics of the whole thing. But the bottom line is our folks identify companies for you, sales targets for you, and then facilitate the meeting. Now, this is really impactful because when the U.S. Embassy reaches out and says, we have a U.S. company who's interested in coming down and meeting with you, would you be interested? We get a very, very high level of companies saying yes, because obviously it adds a lot of legitimacy to your company because the U.S. Embassy is involved and they're trying to arrange the meetings, et cetera. Whereas if you were to just reach out yourself from the United States, they wouldn't know who you are. They'd go to your website, check it out, but they might not be all that keen on just simply meeting with a company they've never heard of. Well, when the embassy is there saying, you need to meet with this company, we know them, they're solid, they're coming here, and you'd be a perfect partner, they typically say yes. So that's an example of one of our most popular services. We have other variations of that service, like the International Partner Search, where instead of arranging the meeting, what we would do is we would identify the good potential partners. We do that whole piece, but then we would provide you with the list, and then you would be able to reach out to them on your own if and when you decided to do that. So it's just another variation. We also have something called International Company Profile, where if a company has reached out to you, maybe you get an email from somebody in a foreign country saying, we would really like to represent you in our country. Well, our people in that country can do an international company profile, which is an in-depth analysis of that company that's reached out to you, and then provide you feedback as to whether we feel that that would in fact be a really good partner for you or not. Right? And these are just examples. We have many other services. Many of them are customized to what the company needs in particular. So an example of that might be that you already have a representative in a particular country, but you're just not getting the traction that you'd like to get. So our folks there can arrange to put on an event that's sponsored by the U.S. Embassy. Sometimes the ambassador will come speak. And then the embassy invites people to this event to come hear about your company. And again, it's the same thing as mentioned with the Gold Key. When the embassy sends you an invitation to come to an event, people typically show up. So it really gives a lot of legitimacy in general. Just examples of some of the services we offer. Of course, you work with your trade specialist to figure out which of these or which combination of these would be appropriate for your company, but they're very, very effective. The other thing is that sadly, things do go wrong. And when you're working with us, essentially working with the US government, if anything does come up that goes wrong, our people in country are often able to facilitate resolutions. So a great example is just getting paid. Sometimes things go sideways. For some reason, a company hasn't paid you from overseas. We can have our people look into that, pursue it, and help you ultimately get paid as an example. Other examples are sometimes there's issues with customs where products for some reason have been detained and aren't being released from customs. It's another place where the government can step in and go try to figure out why that's happening and hopefully resolve it. So the point of this is that another value of working through our organization and these resources is that you do get some of this sort of dispute resolution benefit from the US government in country. We have a lot of online resources for you guys to tap into. One of the best, in my opinion, is a website that the Georgia District Export Council has pulled together called exportu.com. On that site are lots of training webinars around all the different domains of exporting, financing, website globalization, export compliance, you name it. We've got a training webinar on there. I think there's 15 or 20 of them at this point. But also there's something we call the Exporters Resource Database. The Exporters Resource Database is kind of a collection of all of the different resources that are online for you guys to potentially tap into. We got a lot of feedback from our clients saying that even though there's lots of export resources on the internet, it's very disparate. And you have to go into Google and search for them, and it's kind of hard to find all this stuff. The Exporters Resource Database, which again is on exportu.com, pulls all those things together. So it's kind of a one-stop shop. So you don't have to go poking around the internet trying to find these things. They're all sort of there and easily accessible. So definitely check that out. My organization has a website, export.gov, also a lot of resources on that site. And then, of course, the Georgia District Export Council that I mentioned is the organization that developed exportu.com. They have a website. That's a group of businesses that volunteer to help other companies export. So that's another resource that we have that we often tap into just to give companies some real life sort of peer-to-peer guidance and experience on exporting. Very, very valuable resource. And we have a great District Export Council here in Georgia. So with that, I hope this provided you a good summary of what my organization's all about and the information and the support and the services and all of the stuff that we can provide. This screen has my contact information. Please feel free to reach out anytime, and we look forward to working with you in your export journey. Thank you.